transforming. And ending with light love. Yeah, that's where I'm trying to stay.
The beginning and end. Yes.
Exactly.
Very good.
It was a good one. Oh,
They're all good. It's so funny that we feel that our judgment of them has any meaning. You know, it was a good one. I mean, and what does that mean? This is where emptiness comes in. Yeah, or bad. It's all subjective. So that's been, you know, that's sort of the topic that we're going through, is how to recognize that the way things appear to us is not how they actually exist, you know. And then, of course, we make judgments like, oh, this meditation works for me, you know, and then we have to go, why do I say that? Why do I even think that? What does that mean? Because, you know, we have it shows us that we have an expectation that somehow the meditation's doing something for us, not that we're meditating, that our mind, you know, and so some days your mind's going to not cooperate at all. You know, and some days, you know, peace and quiet just seems like torture, you know. Then, you know, other days it's like, oh, transformative, you know. It's very interesting how we don't understand that it's the action of meditating. That's the point. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's what we are, how we're using our time to transform our minds. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Yes.
it's very interesting because what I got from this morning meditation is that it's literally what
What does that mean?
that's exactly what I want.
There we go. Okay. All right. So, all right. I have a great big bag today because I have to bring other things for Kadrala teaching. So it makes noise. Smush. Okay. What do I need?
Can everyone hear you? Can everyone hear?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. If you can't hear me, it's shocking. So I'm pretty loud, but please let us know because we have microphones. Can you put that on gallery view? I mean, I know you're sharing, you know, the screen.
Oh, you mean
That.
that?
Go up to view and put it on gallery. There we go. Thank you. This is so we can all share in the community of practice. Okay. No, we haven't moved the camera over there. The camera's not on, so don't freak out. It's not, you know, but we do have one and it's not, you know, we moved. We don't know what we're doing yet. So you'd think we moved far instead of just next door. Okay, so let's bring that light and love back. So let's take a moment to just really begin with a positive motivation. You know, why are we here? So come up with your own personal motivation. Why did you come? And what's its purpose? So if we want to benefit our own minds, develop our spiritual path, curious about a different spiritual path, whatever it is, we want to combine that with the wish that it not just benefit ourselves, but that it ripples out to the people around us, which then ripples out to the people around them. Remembering interdependence. So important to try to begin activities with a positive motivation. May this be of benefit. And the first person who benefits from that attitude is the one who has that attitude. So ourselves. So we'll recite the four measurables. If you can't see the screen, it's on page 34. And it is up on the screen if you're farsighted. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then page 98. So if you're comfortable reciting the refuge prayer, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So I thought I'd bring up a couple of topics that we really haven't been explicit about in these classes lately. And that is the two truths. Anybody know what the two truths are?
Absolute.
Discourses.
Absolute and okay. So the terms we would use are relative or conventional truth and ultimate truth, sort of the non-absolute truth. So, okay. So everything that exists, has both an ultimate truth about it and an ultimate truth about it. Conventional or relative truth is what, the truth for an ordinary being who's under the influence of ignorance. That's what conventional truth is. So everything, we all exist. The way we exist is not how it appears to our ignorance, but we still exist. So when we talk about emptiness and the absence of inherent existence, don't mistake that for thinking it contradicts conventional existence. It does not. But it is the understanding of how conventional existence is affected by our ignorance. So I was reading some notes from a teaching I received from my teacher in Australia. And with this absence of inherent existence, first of all, let me back up. So our phrase for how things are interdependent, this dependent arising term that I often use, it's a translation of a Tibetan word that actually, if you wanted the complete translation, as opposed to the shorthand, which is what dependent arising is, it's arising in dependence and in connection to. So it brings up both of these things, that there are causes. That's, that it's arising in dependence on causes and conditions, and it's related to them. It's in connection to them. It's not that anything can create anything. It's that they have to be concordant with one another, or as Kadrala was saying, harmonious with each other. They have to go with each other. So like you can't plant a mango seed and get an apple tree. Can't happen. They're not concordant with each other. There's a specific, there's a cause for an apple tree, and that's an apple seed, not a mango seed. Right? So wishing will not change that. Ultimate truth won't change that. We got an apple seed. The only thing it can produce, if it produces anything, is going to be an apple tree. Hello. So dependently related or dependently connected is what the essence of dependent arising means. So I think that adds some richness to the term, because of the meaning. It helps us understand better the meaning. So things are related to each other. So some things are related to each other by being part of the same continuum. Like a moment of your mind, this very moment right now, is related to your previous moment of mind, which is related to the previous moment of mind, just back since beginningless time. Our body of today is related to the body of yesterday. So even though everything is entirely impermanent, all of our phenomena around us, it changes moment to moment, just like our bodies change moment to moment, they are still related to the previous moment of itself. That's why this idea, the trouble is we take the word itself or me to have an extra quality to it. We sort of no longer see something as dependently related. We see it as an independent, self-existent thing like me. And this is the mistake we make. It's just what we do. We immediately impute onto the label me or clock or computer an extra quality of that. It is, we lose the dependently related part, and we just see it as something that just is that. This is very hard. It's such a subtle idea. It's very hard to get at, but it is the fundamental aspect of becoming free from suffering, is understanding that we mistakenly see things as existing in a way they do not. And this is where our problem states of mind arise, our unskillful states of mind, our disturbing states of mind arise, or in relation to the way we think things exist. So when things don't cooperate, like yesterday, our internet went out, and it's sort of like, how can that happen? And also when you think about things like Wi-Fi, what do you mean it goes out? I don't know where it comes from to begin with. So how can it just not be there suddenly, But and it's because we just kind of put a layer of permanence and concreteness to things that isn't ever there. It's not how things, it's impossible to exist that way. So we need to start paying attention to how we are fooled by the appearance of things, and start to there's a wonderful website, and I'll have to try to remember what it is. It's an artist who takes things like a watch, for example, and shows all the parts of the watch. It just expands out. You see all the little parts of the watch to help us remember how much goes into the watch. All these parts, like 1,000 parts of the watch, you know, and all those parts also have a dependent relationship with the materials of their parts, and then their parts. And then there's the person who invented watches, you know, so there's a consciousness that comes into play. You know, the earth didn't make the watch. You know, somebody else used components of the earth to make the watch. So there's consciousness involved. So things are related to, you know, the materials we're made out of. Form objects are related to the material that we're, you know, that come out. Our bodies are related to our parents, sperm and egg, and to the DNA, all that kind of stuff. Our mind is not physical. No. So in some ways you could say it's even easier to change than our bodies, but it's just as hard work. So it's because it's not, it's recognizing that we have such a forceful habit of how things appear. You know, it's just a strong, strong habit that we really think that the appearance of something, you know, is not anything other than that thing. You know, I look at Nicole and it's like, Nicole, I don't see all the atoms and the molecules and the 500 trillion other microorganisms that make up Nicole's body. You know, it's just Nicole. And I don't think about her parents. I certainly don't think about your parents having sex. You know, I mean, it's just, we just, you know, it's just Nicole. And it's like, you know, and we almost feel like, you know, she was born Nicole. Not that her parents had to come up with a name, had to agree on it, had to put it on the birth certificate, had to spell it correctly. Otherwise, you're stuck with a name that's not spelled correctly the rest of your life. So, you know, we make everything permanent. You know, so we need to kind of start dismantling that so that we can start to see that when things change, we're surprised. That actually is very illogical of us, because they're always changing, because there's nothing that's permanent, fixed. You know, nothing exists. There is nothing that exists that is Nicole. It's just a label we've given to a series of events. But we grasp after the label, which is a made-up story. So the second part of this teaching I was looking at talks about our phrase, empty of inherent existence, you know, inherent existence. In Tibetan, the word that we're translating as inherent is natural. How different does that sound? It's natural. We say, you know, I don't know, the forest of the earth, the rivers of the earth, the oceans of the earth are natural. You know, the Tibetans would say that. They exist due to causes and conditions that start with our minds. They are a result of all the causes and conditions that come together, one of which is our ignorance. Everything that appears to us is a manifestation of our past actions and our delusions. Woo. So this is kind of a big thing, you know. On one level, I find emptiness of inherent existence very easy to understand. Yeah, I know I'm not permanent. I know that I change moment to moment. I know that there's no, you know, permanent tendron, you know, that's somehow describable or whatever. But just understanding that this self that I think of as me as just a label given to a series of events. I only get that when I'm thinking about it. It's like, you know, I understand it from a logical point of view. It doesn't stop me from grasping it, you know, at me, especially if, you know, the guy who cuts you off in traffic, you know, how dare you do that to me? How dare you endanger me? How do you know? Then all of a sudden I'm this fixed thing that, you know, about to be hit by a car. We need to start looking at how we do this, because you can see how, in very simple ways, how our suffering starts with this ignorance. You know, like when we break something, or when a relationship ends, or when we wake up with a headache. You know? We are holding things to exist in a particular way. And obviously, we want that particular way to be pleasant, to be, you know, expected almost, not, oh, I have a flat tire this morning. We, you know, we have this, and it's, and when things go awry, we start this mind of suffering that just kind of goes, oh, not today. I'm in a hurry today. Please don't let, you know, I'm on my way to my car. My tires, Florida's interesting to me. You know, my tires, the air pressure in my tires seems to fluctuate wildly, you know, and so I'm always having to check, are they like actually safe to drive? And just recently it's like, okay, it's time to get some more air, you know, because if it's 90 degrees out, my tires are a little bit under their, you know, appropriate, I can't drive at night because they'll go, that's an exaggeration. I have a tendency to exaggerate. So we take, and it's not like constant, you know, it's not like we're idiots and we can't understand that things change and things unexpected happen and da 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 da. But boy, there's a resistance to it, unless it's good. You want to give me a check for $1,000? Oh, that's fine. Totally unexpected, but you know, it's not going to throw me. You know, that's wonderful. You know, my tire's flat, not so great. And then I'll need that $1,000 check, you know, to place those tires. So we want to look at things like, what do we mean to when we say something like the forest is there naturally? What does that mean to us?
It's supposed to be there.
What else does it mean? It could occur on its own. We didn't go out and plant it. You know, in crops we look at, we go, somebody went out and planted the crops. They're not natural. It's natural that plants grow from seeds, but the fact they're on these nice little rows and then, you know, blah, 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 that's not natural. Forests are natural. So that's the way we're using the word natural in our everyday language. What the Tibetans mean is it's dependently related. You know, the forest is there because there was seeds for trees to grow, there was water, there was sun, there was all the conditions that are necessary for life. Like when we search for life on other planets, they are looking for the parts of life. You know, a molecule of this that can do this or that, or don't ask me to explain it because it's words I can't pronounce. You know, it has to have this combination of something for, you know, the potential for water to be there. So our language our just sort of assumes, this kind of, we just, well, it's a forest. It should be this. It had all the stuff to be there, so it's there. We don't really think about it, do we? People who are, what's the word, botanists or zoologists, they're looking into these things, kind of figuring out how did this happen, kind of thing. So they're looking at all those series of events that resulted in this stuff now. Like when they find out that, oh, the flora, the trees on this continent match the trees of this continent, it's because they used to be one continent. How cool is that? Oh, it's all a series of events. And the forest wouldn't be there if any of those parts of its causes and conditions were not there. Like we see that with things that go extinct. The causes and conditions to support that life have ceased. So it's not there anymore. So what the Buddha's talking about here is that everything has cause and effect in operation. Now, there are a few things that are permanent. I don't want to get too bogged down by that. Like uncompounded space is permanent. What does that mean? That means the space for all this stuff to arise in exists. If there wasn't space to sit here, there wasn't space for y'all to sit here. There wasn't space for the building to be here. If there wasn't a space for the planet to be here, if there wasn't space for Milky Way to be here, space is required. And that space, which just means there's nothing that's getting in the way. That's called permanent because it's just a name given to a concept. You can't go out and gather space, pick it up. It's not, it's just an idea. Our calendar is just an idea. Time, it's just an idea. It's not something you can go pick up. Our ideas, these snapshots of an idea are considered permanent. It doesn't mean much. It just, as opposed to all of us that are constantly changing, this is constantly changing, these things are not permanent. They are, the building blocks of objects are eternal. You have to have something to make something physical. You have to have some physicality. Our minds are not permanent, but they're eternal. Consciousness exists. Our consciousness is each of us, not all of them, not one consciousness. Each of our consciousnesses have existed since beginningless time. Always. It just means always. It's eternal. It's mind-blowing. The good news is that we can improve our own peace of mind, our own, we can reduce the suffering in our lives without understanding that. By understanding that our minds are not permanent and can change. That's all we need to know as far as, working on is, can tomorrow be better than today in my mind? Because it's mental. We can't control whether our tires go flat or whether, whatever. We can't control anything, basically, because a whole bunch of series of, causes and conditions are coming together and we're experiencing the result of that. Yeah.
So you keep talking about impermanence. I always keep running into impermanence and emptiness being almost they seem so similar.
Things could not be impermanent if they were not empty. Emptiness means an absence of inherent existence. It does not mean momentariness. Impermanence means momentariness. Okay. even space, uncompounded space, which is permanent, is empty of inherent existence, but it's not impermanent because it's permanent. Let that just float through your mind for a while, Jack. Oh, so they're not the same thing, but they're very, there's a lot of meaning there. Things could not change if they existed inherently, because it would be that, and it would only be that. That's why nothing can exist that way. That's why logically we know that to be true. We know everything changes, and sometimes it makes us happy, when we're screaming at our child, when are you going to change and grow up and take out the garbage on time? Whatever it is, What do you mean? The pandemic happened and I got fat. Just because the gym closed down shouldn't mean that I didn't exercise at all. Yeah. Is there a question over here? Yeah. Okay. Elaine?
So consciousness always existed, and we each have a consciousness, but it's not an individual consciousness.
It is an individual consciousness.
So it always
Your
existed.
consciousness has existed since beginningless time.
Ruh-roh.
Oh, yeah. Hence why you've been in samsara a long, long, long time.
Yeah. Okay.
So an enlightened mind is also empty. It's not permanent. What it is it is irreversible. It's never going to become contaminated with ignorance again, because it's removed the ignorance. So their favorite example in this tradition, which is like my least favorite example of anything in the world, is the rope and the snake. And so you mistake a rope to be a snake, right? And you might be startled by it, but then you realize it's a rope. And so you can never go back to being a snake, because it's a rope. Enlightened mind knows how things exist. It can never go back to not knowing how things exist. Yeah.
What is the relationship between that and suffering?
Our suffering comes from this mistaken understanding of how we exist. We keep grasping after a self that has to be pleased, that has to be taken care of, that has to get certain stuff, that needs this and that and the other. Does a non-physical mind need any of that stuff? Can you be content no matter what's happening? Not you personally. Is it possible to be content? Do you know of any people that seem to not get really bothered by events? They just take them in their stride. We have expressions about it. Yeah.
But enlightened people never get suffering. They never suffer. Enlightened people.
They never suffer, because they no longer have the ignorance that is the foundation of suffering. So this is why it's so important to understand how things actually exist. Yeah. It's not permanent, it's eternal. The wisdom is eternal. Our ignorance is not, because it can be corrected. We can learn it's not true. That makes sense? This is what today's Kadra Law's teaching on why liberation is possible this afternoon. This is why. Because we can, just like we can learn how to drive a car, and then once you know how to drive a car, can we lose that? Yes, absolutely, because your brain can start to screw up. Your eyesight can go, but you still may know how to drive. But you get Alzheimer's, forget it. Please don't let them drive a car. But boy, let me tell you, that's hard to stop them from doing. Yes. So we need to understand that our bodies are an effect of our ignorance. So how perfect can it be? Can't. It's going to end. So there's samsara, cyclic existence, the thing we want freedom from, the existence that's without suffering, the existence that's with suffering, it's called samsara, cyclic existence. It's birth, death, rebirth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. We can stop that if we correct the ignorance in our mind. So what do you need? You need two things to be able to do that. One is you have to have no obstacles to wisdom arising. So like you have to meet teachings. You have to have a certain amount of intelligence. Mosquitoes can't figure this out in the life that they're a mosquito, So you need good conditions. You need all the things you need to have that, to even bother to look at how things exist. Then what removes obstacles? Those of you in the know. Huh? The Dharma by itself doesn't do it. Practicing the Dharma, positive actions of body, speech, and mind removes our obstacles. Hatred is an obstacle to wisdom. When hatred arises in the mind, there's no wisdom there. It's just an exaggeration of negativities that are based on our ignorance. Because hatred's a really good way to see how we grasp as something as existing exactly like that. Somebody does something wrong and we think, oh, they're an awful person. Bad, bad, bad. Evil. We hold them to exist that way.
Essentially fleshing out truths.
The two truths and the Four Noble Truths are the same. They lead to the same conclusion. The cessation of suffering is that is an enlightenment, The path is the method. We can reduce suffering by helping ourselves let go of holding things to exist in a way that they just do not. So, our fears are, what are our fears really? I mean, if you just think about the word fear.
Something bad is going to happen.
Okay, what are those, where do those operate? What are you talking about?
Something bad is going to happen to me.
When?
Later.
Later. Fears about the future. Something that hadn't happened yet. Nostalgia. It's about the past. So getting caught up in both things, like the future, and then the big part, something bad's going to happen to me. Because, something good's going to happen to me doesn't produce fear, right? What can it produce? Yep. Craving, expectation. And then, when you get it, it's like, ooh, I want more of that. So you end up having 3 cinnamon mocha lattes from Modern Rose in a row. That's when the suffering starts. I'm drinking my third one because we've been watching Cadre Law every day. So at the break time, we run off to the Modern Rose because there's a 2-hour break, and I drink, oh, that looks good. And then, and then I think, oh, it's probably better if it's cold because it's so hot out. And that's when they put all this whipped cream and stuff on top.
And it looks so beautiful.
It looks like a chocolate sundae, which it sort of is. So, and they have coffee in there to try to keep you awake to overcome the aspect of sweetness in there, like the chocolate syrup. But so this is the thing. Are mistaking the fact that suffering and happiness are in the objects. We think that it is, we have imputed onto the object deliciousness or ugliness or pleasantness or unpleasantness, and we hold it to exist that way. So we're shocked when we go order our favorite beverage and we don't like it. I mean, we're just shocked. Oh, they did something wrong. No. And they may have done something wrong. They may have left out the sugar. They may have, put some other ingredient, or you got the wrong order, da, 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 da. But where does the happiness really rely? It's on our mind, And so sometimes it, like if I have a 4th cinnamon mocha latte, I might, find it kind of nauseating, because it is not inherently delicious. That's not its nature. Yeah.
So isn't awareness the first step?
Everything's about the mind. The mind is awareness, and we are unaware of how things exist. In fact, we mistake how things exist. It's not just that we don't know, we actually think we know, especially when someone's, being rude, or, oh no, that's just a rude person. I know that that's a rude person, So we hold, yes, please.
How do you change that in the moment? So just remembering them, that they're impermanent and forever changing, and that's going to help me not think that they're rude.
Yeah. That is you that's decided they're rude. It is your imputation on that person. You're assigning that person's behavior. You're labeling that as rude. Now, can it be conventionally rude?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. We have convention. Do we have to be insulted by convention? What's the phrase? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That's a choice. When we think somebody's words have power to hurt us, we're giving them that power. We're imputing onto that being,
Why do I not give them that power?
by choosing not to. This is just my mind creating a story here because I don't like to be treated this way. Who's that about? Yeah, and you can say that louder. It's about me. I don't like being spoken to that way.
And so, like, just walk away. And
Well, I mean, just so the point is, you don't have to choose to not like being told. Who cares? This is the thing, is we need to look at what am I grasping onto? Oh, my reputation goes down if someone thinks they can treat me like that. Oh, what? I mean, we have to look. What is it that I think is making this a big deal? So much so that I want to get mad. Like being mad is a pleasant experience. And I want more of that. No, we can choose to let it they're just words. Even actions. And I think the easiest way to think about this, none of this is easy to do. But if we can remember that things are dependently related. So someone being rude to us, one way to look at it is, I created the cause for this. Maybe not in this moment, maybe not in this lifetime, but things happen due to causes and conditions. And one of them was my action in the past. Because it's all a collection of all these things, Let me finish my thought. That may have been it. Another way to look at it is recognizing that we're all the same. We want happiness and don't want suffering. So when someone is saying harsh words or whatever, something's not right for them.
Let's develop compassion.
So we can have compassion instead. They could have just gotten a terrible phone call. Or they're thinking about that terrible phone call. Yes.
Okay, so in those type of situations, I can be sarcastic with you.
Oh, yeah, that's
'Cause I don't
kind.
like to see them getting angry at that point, because what are you gonna do at that point?
You want to harm them. You want to harm them.
Yes.
Yep.
I would personally like to toss them to the side.
Yeah.
But at that point, I have to get sarcastic because I know the type of person I can be.
Yeah.
So is that a good way to go about it?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because you're harming them. You might just do it in your mind. You think of some clever way to slap their face. That creates the cause for them to mistreat you in the future. Maybe not this life, because in this life they may go, not going to mess with him. But we're just continuing this cycle of, it's not enough for me to be good. You have to be good too. That we demand from other people that they change when we haven't changed. So we say something. I was a queen of sarcasm. Trust me, it did not work out well. Yeah. This is one of those things about teasing, right? Teasing often has an element of truth, and it's hurtful. You're hurting someone through your words. Now, the other people around may laugh, which increases the hurt that you've done to the person who's the subject of that teasing. We hurt each other all the time. Children are really good at it, but where did they get it? Habit. Life after life, we just keep developing these skills. What we want to try to develop the skill is, they must be suffering, or they wouldn't have attacked me. Yeah, please go for it now. I know. And I just follow them around just like I follow my mind. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, what about the place of discernment regarding someone saying something abusive to someone? For example, someone says something abusive to my mother, who's not capable of responding. And so
what difference does it make?
what do you mean? What difference is it?
I'm asking you, what difference does it make?
So for me, I feel I want to protect my mother from having someone abuse her. So isn't it discernment? At what point do I say something? If it's someone said something.
I don't know at what point you say something. Mostly what you want to do is watch your mind. Do you want to say something to let that person know that might be hurtful to your mom? Because that might help them recognize that they're hurting your mom. Or do you want to say something to get them to shut up? We have to look at our motivation. If you really want to protect your mother, that's not a perfectly good motivation. You also want, this is also a human being that you're talking to. They're somebody's mother, not this life, but in some life. They may have been your mother in a past life. We all count. Everybody we interact with counts.
But what about defending somebody who is being unfairly untreated?
Yeah, what about that?
Well, that person is not defending yourself on himself. And then
We have to really look. I'm not saying we don't help people out when they're getting, harmed, but we also need to not model behavior that just increases the harm in the future. Acting like we know what this person who's doing the harm is like, that we know that they're just bad people doing this harmful thing. Not that this is a person who's had lots of suffering in their lives and they're acting out this way. Maybe they haven't had any suffering in this life. Maybe they had it in previous lives and they have learned the habit of responding in this way when they don't get what they want. Or when they want to prove somebody else deserves sarcasm. This is what we do. We just keep going back and forth. I'll be a jerk. Now it's your turn to be a jerk. Then I'll be a jerk back, and then we'll be a jerk. And we just keep going. We cannot change other people. If we could, Buddhas would have changed us all and we'd already be enlightened. Okay. What we can do is change ourselves. So out of love and compassion for both people, your mom and the person saying these things, try to change that energy. So we can say something. We just need to remember that the way we say it, the motivation behind it also has an effect. So we want to try to come from a place of loving kindness. Because every person, if our consciousness has existed since beginningless time, we're all just trading places. Everybody's been our mother. Everybody's been our child. Everybody's been our enemy. Everybody's been our friend in some life. So what they're doing in this moment, in this life, we need to put it in perspective. It's not even this in the sense of time. And this is not easy to do. Yes.
So in a certain example,
Can you speak up a little bit?
in a certain example, I've had cases where I typically don't like to be the angry guy. It's really not my thing. But in certain cases, it's had to come up. And in those cases, when I've had to stand up for myself, the other person did reflect and they would just come back and be like, maybe I shouldn't have treated you that way. But it took anger for them to see that. So was there
Are you sure?
yeah.
No, you see, did you try? You see, this is the
No,
thing.
but yes,
We can be very firm and use a wrathful aspect, an anger aspect, like when like something that sometimes helps children learn not to run into the street is to show that kind of, whoa, don't do that ever again aspect. But its motivation is for the other person, So it's not about you. This is where we want to go, not where we are. This is just where we want to go. We want to make it, you need to treat me right. When we can remove that out of it to just, that we know, just like when you're trying to teach your kids to share, we know that that will benefit them in their whole lives if they learn how to share, that they won't have any friends if they don't learn how to share. They won't have, they'll have to have everything on their own because nobody's going to share with them because they don't know how to share, So you're teaching them, and sometimes you have to use firm, forceful language or actions, like you take the toy away from them. If you're not going to share, you don't get to play with it either, kind of action. But you're not doing it because you care about the toy. You care about the people, So when we want to train our friends to treat us the right way, we have to look at that motivation, instead of like coming from an angle of what's going on with you. Normally you don't talk to me that way. Is something up? Or, when you talk to me like that, I'm hurt or I'm offended or I'm blah, 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 is there something going on? Can I, have I done something wrong? So you can start a dialogue. That's not always going to work. Again, if you're, yeah,
So, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but there's a question.
okay. So it isn't that we can't get the results, the immediate results we want through our negative actions. I mean, people control people all over the world with their negative actions. You know, why? Because they don't want to suffer. You know, please, you know, don't beat me up. You know, well, don't worry about it. We'll give you a gun. You won't have to worry about it, you know. So you can go to war with Ukraine and, you know. So we have to understand that if we want to reduce the suffering in our lives and in future lives, we have to work on our mind, because we create the cause for someone to insult us, for someone to disrespect us, for someone to oppress us, for someone to beat us up, for someone to cheat on us, for someone, you know, we've created, in Buddhism, the teachings are that everything we experience, we created the cause for, just not this life. So if we want a different result, we have to work on our minds to create the cause for a different result. Now, does that mean you can't handle things in your life now? No, of course not. You don't, you know, if someone's stealing from you, you can stop that, hopefully, you know. But it's really about trying to learn that coming from a place of anger or greed or jealousy, or what are some other lovely, belligerence, resentment, that's a good one, spite. Yes, you know, I play a card game all the time called Spite and Malice, you know. I'm a delusional nun, what can I tell you? You know, so, you know, this is, you know, those are what creates the cause for our own suffering in the future. So learning to come from a place of kindness and compassion. This does not mean becoming a doormat. It is not compassionate to let someone abuse you. It's just that we don't want to be abusive back, if you get the difference, you know.
To avoid hurting people so much, it's better learn about ourselves first.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
There's a question.
Oh yeah, I forgot the question. What's the question?
It's about boundaries. Well, she has her hand raised, so I'm not sure.
Oh,
if she
Kat,
wants to-
can you unmute and tell me your question?
Yeah, when you were talking about sharing, an image came into my mind about two kids that are forced to share a bedroom. And, you know, the parents make them share everything. And some of the kids want to draw a line down the middle of the room. This is your side, this is my side. So is it okay to have boundaries?
Of course it's okay to have boundaries. That has nothing to do with sharing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Because the even with the abuse part that you were just talking about, that we cause the treatment of ourselves from the way we treated somebody maybe in our past life.
Oh,
So-
well, like they get very specific and say, if somebody yells at you, you yelled at them in a past life.
Ah,
Yeah, I know. It's so vast, we can't even begin to imagine it.
all right. I'll keep listening. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's not about, it is not compassionate not to have boundaries. You know, we have to remember that we want, in all of our actions, we want wisdom to be there. So we need both. These are the two wings of the bird, compassion and wisdom, loving kindness and wisdom. There's method and wisdom. Method, the skillful means, you know, it's, you know, you can't do those things without wisdom. So certainly we set boundaries. Parents have the responsibility of raising children to be able to be socially adept, you know, to get so that they have friends in the future. So that, you know, with our friends, with our partners, we have a responsibility to help have conversations about it so that we can be in harmony. We have to recognize when we're making it all about us. There's no, that's a very poor use of the word us, because when when you're talking about a couple, for example, that's the us. But, when we make it just, if you're one partner, if you make it all about you, you're not recognizing the interdependence you have with this other person. A relationship involves more than one. Can we take things too far? Like, making someone, have a knee-jerk reaction to having to share all the time and painting the line down the middle of the room. Of course we can go too far, but also, who knows? Maybe the kid's going too far. They haven't really understood the meaning of share. Maybe one of the kids thinks that sharing means I get to use all your stuff all the time. That's not sharing, that's taking. Yeah. Because they did things in past lives. To me, one of the things that kind of supports the idea of karma, of cause and effect, is children. Children are born with personalities. They don't come as blank slates. We talk about them as if they were blank slates, but they're not. Children of the same family, triplets, the same, we're not going to come out the same. They have their own stuff going on, each one of them. And the Buddha's explanation for that, what he observed when he removed his ignorance, is its cause and effect. So if you have a propensity or a habit of anger or sarcasm, I really had a habit of sarcasm and anger, we both, I brought it with me. I can blame my parents all I want to, but I created the cause to be born there. So, but so what we want to remember in all this, the other side of the method, is they're empty of existing in some way. We can change our futures by how we act and think now. Because things don't exist the way we think they do. A physicist I saw on some program recently said something about the fact that we're probably just holograms. Yep.
I thought that karma was created through knowing that you're causing something, not when you don't know. Sometimes you do some things that affect people that you don't know. And
That you've hurt them. Yep.
But when I'm thinking about being ignorance, we're creating karma.
Yeah, all the time, every second.
Even though we are ignorant.
Yeah.
About it.
Yeah, because there's nobody judging us. There's nobody up there going, oops, there it goes again. 1, 2, bad mark, bad mark, bad mark. It's not like that. It's cause and effect.
That's why it's
Does the seed grow out of wisdom? No. It grows because the causes and conditions are there. The seed, it has the potential to become a tree or a plant or a nuisance. So it's not that somebody's going, oh, you're an idiot, and so you're going to have all this suffering. It's not that. It's that the Buddha observed that because we misunderstand how things exist, we continue to do things that bring us suffering. The more that we grasp onto this self, I should get this. I need this. I want this. And we forget that everything in our existence is interdependent with everything else in our existence. Just saying. We need to understand that we're in this room not randomly, but we all created causes and conditions to land here. Now the motivation to show up today. So it's just like that, only big, longer, more time, if time exists, we could have, I can just stay on that conversation for a while just to rest. So it's really about some basic principles, that happiness comes from positive actions, skillful actions, with wisdom. Negative experiences come from negative actions, body, speech, and mind, for both good things and bad things. So all the beauty we experience, all the good food we enjoy, all of that stuff is the result of us having positive actions in the past. So we're not like these terrible people. We're a mixed bag of things, of habits. So what we're trying to do is increase our capacity for positive actions of body, speech, and mind. We have the basis. We have compassion. We have kindness. We have generosity. We have wisdom. We just need to develop it further. And we want to reduce the things we do out of grasping at the eye. But I want this, so I'm going to get angry. I want this, so I'm going to steal it. I want this, so, hey, I don't care if, it might harm my relationship, but I'm still going to chase after that person over there just because why not? Because I want that. We need to understand that our happiness is independence on causes and conditions. It's related to, it's connected to our body, speech, and mind, our actions of body, speech, and mind. Did you have a question again?
Or say tone for things that, let's say, we've done in our past, if we cause people suffering, and then also, let's say, the suffering that we receive now, like how can we, I guess, clear our minds to move towards a better path?
Yeah, well, one of the things is just to recognize it's empty of this, that just because this is the result of my bad actions in the past, first of all, does not mean we just take it. That's not what it means. It just means understanding that cause and effect is involved here. So if I want to change this result, I have to look at my own mind and what motivates me in my actions. If I'm willing to do, things to manipulate situations to get what I want, that's laying the groundwork for others to do that to us in the future, where there's no honesty. We're all just trying to get what we want. Just a second. So atonement, well, we call it as purification in Buddhism. We talk about, apologies are always accepted, but the main thing is our mind. We want to develop a mind that genuinely regrets the harm we've done to others. That just, and sometimes we just regret, we regret not having the skill to not do that. Then if we have the opportunity to apologize and express the sincere regret, not put it on them. They don't have to accept our apology. That's not the contract. There's no contract. If it's not appropriate to apologize, sometimes it's not appropriate to apologize. You don't go up to the, the person that you cheated on them, or you had a relationship with their husband, blah, blah, blah. You don't go up to that wife and go, I'm really sorry. I know that probably hurt you. That's probably not appropriate. You're expecting a little much, but it may be appropriate, it just depends. But we can ourselves, this is considered, the bookend of the day, like in the morning, you want to set a motivation, a positive intention to do things that'll be of benefit to yourself and others, and then at the end of the day, you want to kind of go, didn't do so good here, didn't do so good there. And then you regret those, you really try to take on that responsibility. Oh, that was harmful. And I'm really sorry about that. You want to do that. And then you might say, well, I think I'm going to, I was awfully miserly, I was a little tight with my money. So I think I'll treat someone to lunch tomorrow, or I think I will give some money to a cause, whatever, and then, then we also, at the end of the very last thing we want to do is rejoice about the things that we kind of did well. Like, oh, I'm not all those mistakes. I also had compassion. I had kindness. I smiled. Whatever it is we did that was helpful to others, and be happy about that. We get lots of merit from being happy about good actions, not just our own others. So if nothing else, you can rejoice at the end of the day that there were other people who acted much better. We can rejoice about that, because rejoicing in the good qualities of others is a good mind to have, because often we're jealous instead, and we really should just be so happy because they've just developed that habit. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's just over time, people develop habits. And then, my kid brother was generous from the time he was born. He never went anywhere without bringing me home something. He never did. I mean, he was a really generous person as a 2-year-old. That's habit. It's not just magic. It came from practice. So this is how we can work our way towards having less suffering and recognizing that these little blips, these little moments we have with each other, are not a big deal. They're not the end all be all, So when you recognize, when you're caught in that teenage mind, remember that teenage mind where everything was such a big deal. Everything was a big deal. We need to recognize, first of all, that's a suffering mind. It's putting way too much importance on a moment. So we want to look at that. We want to understand that we're mistaken about the appearance of things. Yeah.
Someone else. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so if we create the causes and conditions that cause us to be born to our parents, that's not our choice.
No,
That's
it's not our choice. We're out of control because of our delusions.
So karma directed us. Those
And what's
parents.
karma? So our past actions. Karma means action. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't, I'm just.
We're out of control. That's what samsara is.
So
We
we
have
don't choose our
uncontrolled
parents.
birth and rebirth. Well, we choose them from our habits. We're attracted to certain parents because of our habits.
But wouldn't that presuppose that we would know something about how our parents are going to raise us? Otherwise, we would choose.
No, it would
different
presuppose that we have the habit of thinking we know.
parents. Thinking we know how our parents are going to.
Or we don't even think about how they're going to raise us. We're just thinking about they're having sex and I want to go there. Literally, that's how it's described. So our habits of what we're attracted to, what we find, what we're averse to, what we want to avoid, those are habits. And they're based on a misunderstanding of how we exist. It's huge. This whole thing. And this is a big worldview. I mean, just like any worldview, it's containing the world. It's a big view. So it takes a lot of thought and reading about it again and again, hearing teachings on it again and again, and kind of trying to go, okay. It's like what I felt when I first the first time I went into like a factory that produced something, and there were all these different machines, like in just this huge room with all these different, and I couldn't imagine how they ever figured out that, okay, if you're going to build this, you need something that can do this and something that can do that and something can do da 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 and something that can do this and blah, 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 blah. Have you ever seen them make taffy or something? I mean, it's wild. So you're just looking at all these things, right? Why does it seem so incomprehensible? There's a lot going on. All these things are going on. Now, the person who invented that first machine wasn't thinking, I mean, you have to look at what you're doing right at this moment, and then they build on that. They look at all the different parts, and then, but when they're building one machine to build, one part, they just focus on that. You're not trying to create the whole building all at once of all those machines, because that's not possible. So in spite of 3D printing, for example, it's still not possible. So it's just we see examples of very complex cause and effect. Like, can you believe what your phone can do? I remember a guy whose job was to take the photograph of the computer thing, what do you call those things? The computer board, so they could shrink it down. It was like a Polaroid camera the size of, it was huge, and it took a picture of this thing, and that's how it shrank, because they silk screened them back then. That's not how they're made now. But that's how they reduce the information that's on this one little thing that, was probably this big. Now you couldn't even see it. I mean, it's just like.
It's a circuit board.
It's a circuit board. Thank you. That's exactly right. It's a circuit board. And now those circuit boards are infinitesimal compared to this one that I saw being photographed and then silk screened. And, I can't understand that, much less the teeny tiny ones. So we need to understand that it isn't surprising when we start looking at cause and effect of what our life experiences are, that it's vast, because it involves a lot of things, all the people we've ever interacted with, just in this life, just in this week, because you've got to realize we interacted with everybody who made this piece of clothing, with all the food we ate, the car we drive, the smartphone, the computer, the rooms we're in, all of that, countless beings were involved, all the way back to the person who came up with the idea of building a room. All those things have to be in place for this room to exist now. So it's vast. And they say only an enlightened mind can know all the workings of karma, only because an enlightened mind has no boundaries of knowledge. They are omniscient. All knowledge is available to them all the time. Yeah.
Is it an infinite cycle, or does it actually, does it stop?
Never stops. Our consciousness never stops. But we can get out of this kind of existence. We don't have to exist this way.
We can root out negative seeds of karma and positive seeds flourish.
Right. And
that's the control we have over karma. We can't change what we
did in the past. Yeah,
Whenever we
we're
did
stuck
it,
with that. Yeah.
But by what we do now, increasing our wisdom,
We create the
our
future.
understanding of emptiness, we can root out the negative seeds.
Eventually, and what completely uproots the negative seeds is a realization of how things exist. And not just any old kind of realization, not just like, oh, I get that. It's an actual experience of how things exist, where we're not fooled by appearances at all. The appearances don't arise. So you're developing your wisdom, you're developing your concentration, your ability to focus, you're doing all these things so that you actually have an experience of how things actually exist.
So we're just understanding emptiness at some point, the actualization that you actually understand it without logically understanding it.
Well, no, you're not having to think about it anymore.
Right.
You're having an
It's
actual experience
experiential.
of it. So just like you don't know what a punch in the face feels like till you have experiencing the punch in the face. And then as soon as it's over, you don't know what it feels like, This is a Buddha experiences everything exactly as it is in every moment. And that's why enlightened mind doesn't have these appearances. These appearances come from our ignorance. our mistaken way of thinking we exist. It's a huge proposition for us all, especially if we didn't grow up with thinking this way. You know, I mean, it's kind of new, you know, because it means that nobody created anything. You know, it's not like somebody else created something for us, that somebody else is judging us, that somebody, no, we're creating our existence. All, you know, and we're interdependent with each other, with the building blocks of physicality, all sorts of things, but mostly our ignorance, that we misunderstand how we exist, that grasping at a self to exist in some sort of nature, you know, that I am Tendron. You should be able to see me as Tendron. You know, if you were really, 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 really smart, you could know me without talking to me, you know. And if you were Buddha, you could, you know, but yeah.
I like the specific examples of how an understanding of emptiness helps us reduce suffering in our lives. So let's continue with that for a moment.
Just a little moment where
the waking up in the morning with a headache, the
Yep.
flat tire,
Yep.
somebody insulting our mother.
Mhm.
So is it a matter of just changing our mind and taking action?
It's a matter of changing our mind and maybe not taking action.
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of just recognizing that stuff happens. Samsara is the nature of suffering. So why should I expect anything else? You know,
So
that
with the flat tire, we need to change our
mind.
woe is me
Yeah.
mentality.
Why me? Why today? Whatever. I mean, why not today? It's just silly. We have to make it
Headache,
these.
we need to think that tomorrow we won't have a headache.
What we might, but
Well,
it's just
okay,
like,
well, what do we do with the headache?
well, it's impermanent. The body doesn't always feel good. It's impermanent. Does it matter in terms of how we act? Can we use the excuse that I'm sorry, I can be a bitch today because I have a headache? Because we kind of do that. You know, so we want to recognize that that's not a good plan. You know, you have a headache. So maybe you have to modify what you're going to do that day because the headache. But it's not like a big deal that you have a headache. It's not like other people don't get headaches. It's not like it's a, you know, like, why should I get, we really take it personally. You know, as if somehow we're special and no one else is. We don't care nearly as much if somebody else has a headache. You know, we mind if it's our partner, or our child, or whatever, for a moment, you know, while they're in the room, we'll care. You know, but we blow things way out of proportion because we're grasping to the self as somehow so important. Well, everybody has a self. You know, and if we spend our time thinking about all those selves, our headache wouldn't seem so big of a deal. Because everybody's got stuff, because there's the truth of suffering. You know? And our constant clinging to that I, but I want this, and I don't want this. You know, that's a part of our suffering. It's a huge part of our suffering. You have a question, Jack, or are you just staying awake? Okay, somebody has a hand raised. Kat.
Okay, so I'm new to this whole concept, and I'm just wondering, today a cat, I've lived in this house for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Today, for the first time, a cat showed up at my back door screen, meowing and meowing, and I woke up with a killer headache this morning, and I thought to myself, is this cat here representing me in another life? Does it
Now
seem
this cat is its own being with its own mind, with its own stuff, and has some connection with you. That's why it came to your door.
is that the right way to think about it?
I don't know. That's what the Buddha taught.
Okay.
You know, it's not all about us. We are not the center of the universe, in spite of the fact we feel like we're the center of the universe. It's not all about us. It's it's dependently related. So if a cat comes up to your doorway, there's some relationship there.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah,
felt
but
that
it's not you. It's not representing you, it's them.
Ah,
Not that there's much difference there, but you know.
that's very cool concept. Okay.
Okay, we're out of time. So it's a lot to think about, you know, but the good news is the basic day-to-day practice is try to remember that we have the potential, you know, we have everything we need to remove our suffering. That says a lot about us. Everybody else does too, you know? And so we want to, you know, come from a place of acknowledgement that everybody's suffering just like we are. Everybody's doing the best that they can. And sometimes it's incredibly unskillful. You know, it's just, we don't know what we're doing. And we continuously make mistakes and harm each other. And all for the same reason. We want to be happy and not want to suffer. You know, but there's a skillful way to not have suffering. So we want to work on that, you know, and relax, you know, no moment, one moment, you know, it's not a big deal. You know? Even though that's our first thought. Wow, this is a big deal. Okay, so we want to now take the merits of trying to even think about such a conversation. Because its purpose is all about trying to develop into being a more beneficial person, you know, so that's really excellent. And so we want to, that creates the cause for positive things in the future. So we want to take that and share it with others. So we're reciting this prayer. Only I don't have control of the screen, so me doing anything over here is not going to help. Okay. All right. No. I was just trying to move the screen myself. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, where is it? Okay, may the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. The forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So sentient beings are beings that have a mind that's contaminated with ignorance, just so you know. So that means all of us who are in the same boat. And then the long life prayers for His Holiness. And the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then
You have it on your laptop. I have to download it on this one.
Okay. Well, close that.
But I know our virtual.
Whoops, that's not it. Just a second. Technical difficulty. You think you can do something. It always takes time. Okay. So this is for the swift return of our teacher, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher, and a simply, I can't talk. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother sentient beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Yay, team. Okay. So thank you all at home. Sorry if I missed questions. You know, I'm not good at that. So good to see you. Good to see you all.
And thanks that we do have
Thank you.
We have a potluck.